Please read the description. I was writing the script before I learned that the album has a different track list in the CD version compared to the band's playlist in YouTube. So, as a premise, my listening experience is based on the YouTube sphere. Let's go. Making a door less open shouldn't even get a rating over a 5 out of 10. In fact, it might even be too generous given the solid previous records of the band. For one, Madlow feels too scattered with its sound, even with just the singles alone. Can't Cool Me Down is far different from Hollywood, the latter of which is probably the most controversial song the band has made in a while. While I disliked Hollywood on release, it has grown on me quite a bit, more of as a messed up song that deals with frustrations of a common man than as a damn fine song. Anyway, I dove into the album thinking that Hollywood will be a hint or a recurring theme in the album. This is also encouraged by the fact that in the song Martin, rather than getting Martin himself, we get a song about Martin talking about Justin instead. Like, there must be a reason why Will's persona is persistent in the promotional materials. I say this is probably a stretch, but I like going along with convoluted theories anyway. The messed up format is probably meant to be the theme of the album, which is obviously reflected in the instrumentation, but it's also apparent with the tracklist flow and song formats. Weightlifters as it is as an intro is already quite different, with a differently wired song setup and a repetition of thoughts can change your body. The lyricism is there, so could it just be an emphasis of experimentation for the rest? Well, it could be, but I would go to what I believe is the main theme of the album: messed up format, confusion, a rattled state of mind. Weightlifters has this line: maybe if I keep my mouth shut, God will answer all my prayers. Followed in the same verse by this: I kept my mouth shut and hoped that this would happen to me. Then one line just before the last chorus: I feel the tension, I'm afraid it will break. I should start lifting weights. It's reminiscent of the themes of maturity and growing up from teens of denial. There's hesitation even in just the simple concept of lifting weights, some sort of overthinking or a personal conflict already. But Madlow is a weird mix due to the rest of its tracks. Why is Weightlifters followed by Can't Cool Me Down? It's quite different already sonically. But you know what? Cool water on my brow can't cool me down. Besides, I think the theme still continues, especially within the first verse. Inside my head is an empty head, which is even started by schizophrenic dreaming. Add along with the satisfying high of the bridge part, which is also very pretty to look at with the song's lyric video. Then we have Deadlines, Hostile. This one was an immediate hook for me. I really love the up and down singing in the song, together with the repetition of lyrics. I'm a huge sucker for lyrical repetition if it enhances the feelings of the song. The whole setup feels like a laid back version of Bodies from Twin Fantasy, and I am here for it. Am I on your mind? Is it what you like? Alright, I was really a mistake tonight. Then follows the controversial song Hollywood. Well, it's not really a bad song. I began to appreciate it more as a screaming your thoughts out loud song, which works very well with the duality of vocals in the song. I love contrast when it's done right. It might be an on and off for the album itself, but the song is propped up well, if not for its tiresome concept. Hollywood, really. Hollywood. The band has songs like Fill in the Blank that feels more refreshing, but with similar rawness to them. Hollywood is just a bad idea. What follows is Him Remix. This one's definitely on the weirder side of things. Just a repetition of Feel it in my heart with some drawling music behind. I've got nothing much to say except that it roughly counts as an actual hymn, especially when the vocals get echoey and is compounded by each other. Despite the positive notation of what a hymn is, the song itself still plays with internal conflict. If I give this up, will I be saved? Maybe he will be, since he got the next song to elaborate on this mindset. Martin, which is my favorite song from the album. A strong bias for me, especially since it reminds me of what I loved from Twin Fantasy. Also, it's the song that I like the most to sing along with. Unfortunately, it feels too short. I wish I could blast along the chorus a few more times, like maybe through a duration of a little over than 15 minutes. I will find strength in your power. I'll stop running like a coward. I will find you. I will. I take Justin to be the regulator of our dear Martin, who I will assume to be the protagonist of the album. Could be a lover, could be just a friend, or could even be just an ideal version of himself that Martin wants to incorporate. But what's important is that Martin has something that can console him, inspire him, or just settle down his nerves. You change the track more. Him could perhaps be just an effort to calm down the internal self. But maybe Martin himself does not know what he feels in his heart. But if there's one good thing within all the crazy things he lives through, I will never forget the way you made me feel. The second part of Deadlines does not disappoint. I thought the first one was sexy and smooth, but this one leans more on, well, being thoughtful, and it's enhanced by the change of words as emphasis for each song. Hostile's repetition was about, oh, temptation, and oh, completion, as if more demanding. Thoughtful's repetition is about, oh, compassion, and the thought process feels like mounds of words are being replaced by the incessantly whirring background noise. I like the contrast in particular. Being thoughtful is not necessarily soft. It can be loud and persistent as compassion can transform a person. And with the transformation of a person, Martin is asked with the question of, what's with you lately? Personally, not a fan of this kind of song, but given the running theme of thoughts and more thoughts, it's the raw feeling of short but jarring sadness in a complicated tracklist that makes the song feel quite fitting. It's a bit out of the blue, especially with instrumentation, but it resembles a piece of emotion from much of the previous tracks. It works very well with its placement, especially with the way the album makes its way to its closure. Life Worth Missing comes next. At this point in the album, I already felt longing even in just my first listen. It's also the point when I realized the album feels too short. I love the nostalgic feeling that this song gives me. I would love this to be a background song as I cry and reminisce about other stuff. This song also reminds me of Frank Ocean's Ivy, but louder tap and more distinct to the band, of course. And I think it's not a baseless assumption since the band has covered that song in the past, even mentioning the singer in the updated version of Cute Thing. Perhaps it's even similar. I feel it break, I feel the weight of anger, pain, and sorrow breaking over me. There Must Be More Than Blood is the longest song in the album, and one before the last. Although the acoustic version has its merits, the studio version is still the better form for me. And boy is it a great high for the album. I like the echoey parts of the song, but the bridge, man. The bridge is classic car seat Headrest lyricism, man. That part stings. And it wasn't for the love that you went back home. It was the guilt in your throat that you swallowed the bone. And you're grateful for the buzz. It's a place to sit down like a spider in the winter trying not to be found. I love the angst in his song and how it tackles the problems in a not so perfect family setting. That there is also conflict of personal meaning even in the home of his supportive family. There was nothing but lines, nothing but outlines. My gut sank like a stone. But I heard another voice say, we all walk alone. The band has some amazing magic with making long songs feel like amazing rides that are both emotional and rewarding. Famous is the closer for the album. We're brought back to the more distorted aspects of the album, and it's bad. I'd say it's intentionally bad, and it goes so well with the theme of a rattled state of mind, but who knows? Famous itself can be easily seen as a narcissistic term, but putting this in a context along the lines of, please let somebody care about this, it sounds more like desperation or clinging to the idea of fame for validation. In a way, it perhaps justifies the previous presentation of the Hollywood concept. Faces form faces, phrases come in faces. Aren't these just jumbled words, feelings, and songs? Or are they even part of the whole project intentionally as an idea? Maybe, maybe not. And we're even brought back to a small wordplay in the album's intro. Change your mind. Change your mind. Change your mind. Change your mind. I really like the feeling, and the swapping of the voices from normal to altered enhances the mood of the piece. The end result brought me encouragement to do this review after all. Maybe I'll change my mind about various stuff in my own personal routine too. I can start with weightlifting. So, making a door less open, it explains itself pretty well, I believe. There can be conflict in being open about your own internal problems, but there's also the problem of carrying the burden by yourself. And it's not exactly easy to decide on premise alone, because there's also significant value in being careful with relationships and their stability, be it with Justin or with just the family. You can take Madlow as a form of defense mechanism to avoid all these problematic conflicts. But then again, one cannot just stay quiet all the time. Maybe it's just about a toxic man and why we have a literal gas mask as a representation of the album. Who knows? Maybe the door in that state intentionally prevents us from gleaning more information. I can believe that. Madlow shouldn't even get a rating over a 5 out of 10, but it's fragmented materials like this that feels more close to my own messy state of mind. I like it. I actually do like it. And I fully expected that I would have a conflict just pushing through it. I connect to it. It's got that trend of a reflective tracklist that the band has been going along with fairly well. Definitely not the best, but it's still a solid treat. I'm giving this a 7 instead, for all the personal reasons I've said. I, for one, care a lot about this record. Thank you, car seat headrest.